Rabindranath Tagore was not merely a poet, he was a bridge between the East and the West, between the past and the future, and between the individual soul and the collective spirit of humanity. Born in 1861 in Calcutta, during the height of British colonial rule in India, Tagore entered the world at a time of turmoil and transformation. India was awakening from centuries of tradition-bound inertia, struggling under the weight of foreign domination, and wrestling with its own internal divisions of caste, class, and religion. Into this world came a boy whose words would one day inspire not only his own nation but also the entire world. He became a poet of freedom, not only political freedom from colonialism but also the inner freedom of the human spirit, the kind that transcends boundaries of culture, language, and faith. Tagore grew up in a large and intellectually vibrant family. The Tagore household was not an ordinary one, it was a hub of art, literature, and progressive thought. His father, Rabindranath Tagore, was a leader of the Brahmo Samaj movement, which sought to reform Hinduism and promote universal worship of one God beyond rituals and idol worship. From an early age, Rabindranath was surrounded by discussions about spirituality, philosophy, and reform. Yet he was never content to merely absorb what others believed. His restless spirit sought meaning in the world beyond doctrines. He found his earliest teacher in nature, trees swaying in the wind, rivers flowing with calm persistence, and the vast skies that stirred in him a sense of the infinite. This connection with nature would later become a recurring theme in his poetry and prose, and it shaped his vision of education and humanity. Unlike many children of his time, Tagore resisted the rigid, colonial education system. He often described his school days as suffocating, feeling like a bird trapped in a cage. This dissatisfaction with formal schooling gave rise to his later dream of a more holistic, human-centered education system, one that nurtured creativity and respected the individuality of each child. Years later, he would establish Visva-Bharati University at Santiniketan, an institution where learning took place under the open skies, in communion with nature, emphasizing freedom of thought and harmony with the world. Tagore's genius blossomed early. By the time he was a teenager, he was already writing poems, essays, and plays that displayed profound depth and sensitivity. His poetry was not confined to personal emotions, it reflected a deep awareness of the struggles and aspirations of ordinary people. He wrote about love and loss, about the beauty of the changing seasons, about the pain of injustice, and about the divine presence in the most mundane of things. His words were simple yet profound, capable of moving both the learned scholar and the humble villager. This gift would later earn him the distinction of becoming the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913 for his collection of poems, Gitanjali, or Song Offerings. The Nobel Committee described his work as possessing profoundly sensitive, fresh, and beautiful verse, but to Tagore himself, poetry was never about awards or recognition. It was his way of conversing with the world and with God. Tagore's vision of freedom was far deeper than political liberation from the British Empire. He believed that the chains of fear, greed, ignorance, and hatred were more binding than any foreign ruler's laws. True freedom, in his view, was the liberation of the mind and spirit from narrow identities, be they national, religious, or social. He dreamt of a world where, as he famously wrote, the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. These lines from Gitanjali remain a timeless call for universal humanism, urging us to rise above the divisions that continue to plague humanity. Yet Tagore was not blind to the struggles of his nation under colonial rule. He spoke out against the injustices of imperialism and the exploitation of India's resources and people. However, his approach was often at odds with the more militant nationalist movements of his time. While figures like Bal Gangadhar Tilak and later Mahatma Gandhi mobilized the masses for direct political action, Tagore emphasized moral and spiritual awakening as the foundation of any lasting freedom. He feared that replacing one form of oppression with another born of anger and revenge would not lead to true progress. This sometimes brought criticism from his contemporaries, who thought he was too soft on colonial power. But Tagore's focus remained on the dignity of the individual and the cultivation of compassion, believing that political freedom without inner transformation would be incomplete. His international recognition brought him into contact with leading intellectuals and leaders of his time. He traveled extensively across Europe, America, and Asia, spreading his message of unity and peace. In his meetings with figures like Albert Einstein, he explored the intersections of science and spirituality. With Mahatma Gandhi, he shared a relationship of mutual respect, though they often disagreed on methods of political struggle. Tagore called Gandhi Mahatma, meaning great soul, while Gandhi referred to Tagore as Gurudev, meaning revered teacher. Their dialogues reflected two different yet complementary visions for India's future, one rooted in spiritual strength and the other in active resistance. One of Tagore's most lasting contributions was his idea of education as a means to nurture the whole person. At Visva Bharati, he sought to create an environment where students could develop intellectually, artistically, and spiritually, surrounded by the beauty of nature. His belief that education should liberate rather than confine was revolutionary in a world still dominated by rote learning and rigid hierarchies. This vision continues to inspire modern educational reformers who seek to balance academic rigor with creativity and emotional well-being. Tagore was also a cultural ambassador for India at a time when the West often viewed the East with condescension. Through his lectures, writings, and music, he showcased the richness of Indian thought while embracing the best of global cultures. His philosophy was not about rejecting the West but about creating a dialogue between civilizations, recognizing that every culture holds a piece of the larger human truth. He believed that humanity's progress depended on cooperation rather than competition, on mutual respect rather than domination. In his personal life, Tagore experienced profound losses. His wife, two of his children, and several close relatives passed away at relatively young ages. Yet these tragedies did not make him bitter. Instead, they deepened his understanding of the fragility and beauty of life. His poetry often reflects this blend of sorrow and serenity, revealing a man who found meaning in both joy and suffering. His writings remind us that pain and loss are not enemies to be conquered but companions on the journey toward wisdom. Tagore's songs, known as Rabindra Sangeet, continue to resonate deeply in the hearts of millions. They blend poetry, melody, and spirituality in a way that transcends barriers of language and culture. Two of his compositions went on to become national anthems, Jana Gana Mana for India and Hum Aar Sonar Bangla for Bangladesh, a testament to his enduring influence on the spirit of entire nations. As the world today grapples with rising nationalism, religious conflicts, and environmental crises, Tagore's vision of universal humanism feels more relevant than ever. He warned against the dangers of blind patriotism that breeds division and conflict. His call for harmony between humanity and nature serves as a reminder that progress should not come at the cost of the environment or the dignity of others. He championed the idea that true civilization is measured not by material wealth or military power but by the capacity for empathy, creativity, and justice. Rabindranath Tagore's life and work continue to inspire because they speak to the universal quest for meaning, dignity, and connection. He showed that poetry could be a tool for freedom, that education could be an act of liberation, and that the arts could be a bridge between cultures. More than a century after his birth, his words still carry the power to awaken us to our shared humanity. To remember Tagore is not merely to honor a historical figure but to keep alive a vision of a world united by compassion and wisdom. In reflecting on his legacy, we are reminded that freedom is not a gift handed down by rulers but a flame that must be kindled in every heart. The challenge he posed to his generation remains ours as well, to rise above narrowness and fear, to embrace the diversity of human experience, and to see in every other person a reflection of the divine. Rabindranath Tagore remains, above all else, the poet of freedom and universal humanism, a guide for any age that seeks to reconcile progress with compassion and individuality with the collective good. His life stands as a testament that words, when infused with truth and love, can change not only nations but also the human soul.